Welcome, everyone. Hi, Janie. Good to see you. Oh, it's so great to see so many familiar names joining us this morning. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Wonderful.
Give me a minute to get my names up. Wow. Thanks everybody for coming today. It's so good to see you all. Well, we don't get to see you. It's so good to see your names. We don't get to see you or hear you in this mode, but it's really good to know you're with us.
Great. Thank you all so much for coming. We'll go ahead and just get started with some housekeeping before we start the webinar. So welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning to learn about hunger in Arizona with the Community Food Bank and Lutheran Social Services of the Southwest. So as a participant in our webinar this morning, you can join us by using the chat box. You can send us a message on chat. You can raise your hand if you have something you want to share later on in the webinar. And you can also use this Q&A feature. We'll be answering questions at the end of the webinar, but you can feel free to type in a question at any point when anything comes up, and we will be sure to get to that at the end of the webinar. So with that, I would like to introduce you to our President and CEO, Connie Phillips.
Thank you so much, Heidi, and thank you all so much for coming today. We are just so glad to have you here. We are going to be talking today about hunger and how Lutheran Social Services is engaged in addressing the needs of people who are experiencing food insecurity. But before we get started, I just want to take a minute to remind you all of Lutheran Social Services mission and the programs that we provide. Our mission is to stabilize people during crisis and transition, to build a foundation where people can thrive, and to preserve dignity and respect for the most vulnerable. And we serve people in 4 program areas in 4 counties. We work in Maricopa County, in Pima County, in Santa Cruz County, and in Cochise County. We do some different programming in each of those counties. While we have refugee resettlement and immigration services are in both Maricopa and Pima County, some of our other programs are more localized. For instance, in Maricopa County, we provide emergency services where we actually operate 2 food pantries, as well as provide services to people who are experiencing homelessness by providing shelter, and we do rent and utility assistance. In Tucson, we work primarily with older adults, as well as refugees, and older adults also in Santa Cruz and Cochise counties. And then the other division is our children and family programs, which are primarily in Maricopa County, where we have family resource centers and also recruit foster homes for children and adults with developmental disabilities. And our next slide then. Today, though, as I said, we are going to be focusing in on how we address hunger. And so I'm going to do your introduction. I'm Connie Phillips. I'm the President and CEO of Lutheran Social Services. And we're joined today by Meredith Laubach, who is the Network Development Coordinator for Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona. It's delightful to have her come and join us. So thanks for being here, Meredith. And then we're also excited to have Alicia Clark with us, who's the Program Manager for Aging and Disability Services located in Tucson. And then, of course, you all know Heidi, because who doesn't know Heidi, right? Who is now our Communications Coordinator. Today, we are going to ask Meredith to talk to us a little bit about the broader issue of food insecurity and food. She's going to be telling us some statistics and going over some information with us. And then we'll zero in on what it is that Lutheran Social Services does for older adults who are experiencing food insecurity, and talk about Meals on Wheels and shopping and how that fits in, and the people that we're supporting with that service. So I am going to go ahead and turn you over to Meredith. Thanks again for being here today.
Thank you so much. So as was mentioned, my name is Meredith Laubach, and I work for the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona. We are a food justice nonprofit, and we work in 5 counties in Southern Arizona, including Pima, Santa Cruz, Cochise, Graham, and Greenlee. And so as a network development coordinator, I work with our 300 plus partner network, and they range from small nonprofits to churches, faith-based organizations, grassroots organizations, and they're really integral to all of the work that the food bank does. So our mission is that we change lives in the community we serve by feeding the hungry today and building a healthy, hunger-free tomorrow. And I talk about the mission because I think it highlights 2 of the major parts of the work that the food bank does. The first is feeding the hungry today. We know that a lot of folks in our community are in need of immediate food, of food right now. And we want to make sure that we provide that service for folks. But we've actually been distributing food to people for over 40 years, and food insecurity rates haven't changed. And so we know that this is not a solution, a sustainable solution to the issue of food insecurity. And so we're also really focused on building a healthy, hunger-free tomorrow. And to that means thinking about why people are in hunger, facing hunger, how is that connected to poverty? How is that connected to other issues that folks are facing? We know that no one is facing hunger alone, that there are always these, this deep ecosystem of issues. And so we think of this as our root cause work, our work that thinks about the causes of poverty. And so we have partnered with Lutheran Social Services for many years now, and it actually really well shows the 2 types of work that the food bank does. So on the right, you will see our volunteer, Pat. She is working at our Care Dad Community Kitchen, which is a kitchen that has culinary training programs for folks who need the training to go into the restaurant industry or other culinary industries. And we also have a fully staffed kitchen where we give food to folks, or we make food to give to folks directly. And we also make these packaged meals. I think that Pat is carrying a tray of salads. And those meals are for Meals on Wheels. And we're very lucky to partner with Lutheran Social Services and Catholic Community Services, who deliver those meals to seniors in need. And then we also do a lot of work with our partners through grant making. We feel like if we are really invested in the idea that hunger is deeply connected to other issues, we have to be invested in solutions for those other issues as well. We can't just be focusing on hunger. And we also know that we do not have deep relationships with all of the communities throughout our service area, but other organizations do, and they have that knowledge of their community's needs and the nuances of the cultural competency for that community. And so it's really important for us to invest in other organizations doing important work in our service area. And so last year we gave a sizable grant to Lutheran Social Services for their refugee youth mentorship program. So to zoom out and think about hunger in Arizona overall, I'm using this study by ASU and a research group, NFACT, that did this study in 2020. But I really want us to ground in the idea that like COVID was really, really bad for the state of hunger. But we've had a really, really major hunger problem in the US, in Arizona, for a long time now. None of this is new. 1 in 4 people in 2019 faced food insecurity. And so as was shown by COVID, the cracks in our systems were already there. They were just illuminated and sometimes magnified by COVID. And so we did see that during COVID, that rate rose to 1 in 3 individuals in Arizona facing food insecurity in 2020. And as most systems, it did not affect people equally. Folks were definitely disproportionately affected. And so across the United States, we know that people of color are more affected by food insecurity. And so in Arizona, that's specifically Hispanic households. Also across the country, across time, we have seen that household children are more affected by hunger. And we also know that food insecurity is deeply linked with economic security. And so those folks who face job disruption, whether that be unemployment, loss in hours, loss in wages, those folks were also disproportionately affected. And the other statistics that I want to point out, I think just give interesting nuance to this information. So 1 in 8 people bought food on credit during 2020 in Arizona specifically. And I think this makes more sense when we contextualize it with the information that half of households in the US wouldn't be able to withstand a $400 financial crisis. And so for many, COVID was that $400 financial crisis. And so folks did have to buy food on credit. The next was that 1 in 8 people borrowed money from friends and family for food. And this, I think, has a different tone. Yes, it still means that folks weren't able to pay for that food themselves, but it also shows the deep connectedness of some communities, how they support one another, how we support one another, and that communities have historically provided that safety net to one another and will continue to do so. And then the last point I want to bring up is that 1 in 8 people received food from food pantries. And so that is a lot less than the 1 in 3 people who face food insecurity. And I think this really speaks to food pantries being an important part of the solution, but not being the whole solution, that we need to have more systemic change, more sustainable solutions to hunger, and that people either don't want to go to food pantries or there are other ways that they want to deal with their food insecurity. So what did we as the Community Food Bank find over this past year? So similar to the statistics of the last slide, as there was an increase in food insecurity, we also saw an increase of households receiving our services. You may have seen those pictures in Houston and Dallas of cars lining up for really long stretches to receive food. And while our lines weren't that dramatic, we're not in as big of cities, it was a really strong visual statement of the need that we saw this year, and also of the ingenuity of the change that we can make. Drive-through distributions is definitely new for us, and I think it was a really good innovation. We also knew that COVID really changed people's lives and situations, and we didn't want to make assumptions about what that meant. And so we did a survey of our participants, our clients, other folks we're in community with, and we found that many people did need food. About 60% of the people we surveyed said they needed food. But we also asked, what policy work would you like to see us do? And the top 2 were housing and healthcare. And so again, just wanting to remind us of people aren't experiencing food insecurity in a silo, but it's deeply connected to other issues. And I think it's important for us to think about housing and healthcare. And lastly, our numbers really fluctuated with public assistance, so COVID SNAP and unemployment benefits. And this may seem obvious, but I think it's also a really important reminder that when people have resources, they get food themselves. And public assistance can be a really strong and sustainable way in which we ensure that people have the resources to get food themselves. So I just want to end on this slide about why do we have this hunger in Arizona? And it really is this deep interconnected web of issues. You can see with the unemployment, underemployment, inadequate wages, some of it has to do with income. A lot of it has to do with income. But also some of these other social issues really relate to wealth generation, generational wealth. And we know that that is not equally accessible across all communities. As I said, healthcare and housing is really important. There are folks that have to choose between the food, healthcare, and housing of what do they need right now and what do they need to prioritize. In the survey of our participants, a lot of folks said, I have the money to buy food, but I actually don't have the transportation. And so that's a really important aspect as well. And I do have on here food deserts and food swamps. Food swamps, for folks who aren't in the know about that name, is basically when there's a high concentration of fast food or low nutrient food in like convenience stores, but not access to high nutrient food. And so access to food is definitely part of food insecurity, is part of the hunger situation in Arizona, but it's really not the whole situation. And so I think when we think about creating real sustainable solutions and wanting to decrease, one day eliminate hunger, we really have to think of this deeply interconnected web of issues in our society right now. So I'm so appreciative of your time and the ability to be here. I'm going to pass it along next to Alicia Clark, who is the Program Manager of Aging and Disability Services in Tucson.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Meredith. And as Meredith said, I am the Program Manager for Aging and Disabilities in the Tucson area, Pima County. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our Meals on Wheels and shopping programs. What we do with Meals on Wheels, we deliver nutritious frozen pre-cooked meals every week, Monday through Thursday, to about 550 people. The meals are prepared by Caridad Kitchen with the Community Food Bank of Arizona. So thank you again, Meredith. The meals are delivered by 5 of our staff drivers. The shopping program is another way to serve people who are homebound. Twice a month, we shop for groceries for adults in the community who are unable to shop on their own. We shop exclusively at Fry's and go twice a month to pick up groceries that client chooses. There's about 300 clients in this program, and there are some overlap between Meals on Wheels, shopping, and even our home care programs. Who is eligible? Like I mentioned previously, we shop for people who are homebound. This is also true for Meals on Wheels clients. During COVID, we were doing intakes for new clients over the phone. People who are eligible are not able to get out and buy ingredients on their own, not able to prepare meals the way they used to. They can't stand up and cook, or may not be as dexterous as they used to be. Opening packages can be very challenging for them. We have also started delivering meals to people who have been self-isolated due to COVID. Sometimes we have clients who live with someone else, and we can help take the burden off of that caregiver. Why we provide these services? There's So many reasons why we do this work, but most importantly, it stabilizes lives of older adults in need. Drivers check in to make sure that they're doing okay and haven't fallen down or gotten hurt. Once a client wrote us a thank you letter saying, "My delivery man is so sweet and pleasant to visit with." Shoppers bring groceries into the house. However, with COVID, they haven't been able to do so, to enter the house, put things away. But we always make sure to set groceries at a height that it's easy for people to reach. We want to make sure that clients are comfortable and safe. During the pandemic, we have been able to serve hundreds of more people than we had before. Our reach has been able to expand to other individuals who are isolated at the home and had no safe way to access food. During the pandemic, we were able to increase every person's meals from 7 to 7 per week, as opposed to the 3 or 5 meals that we could deliver before. These programs have relieved stress to thousands of homebound individuals facing food insecurity. COVID-19 experience. This was a huge and pleasant experience that we had. We received $500,000 grant from the city of Tucson to increase the shopping services. We started shopping for hundreds of additional clients, and we were able to cover some of the cost of their groceries. Our clients were overjoyed, very overjoyed. It was amazing. They were able to pick out items that they usually couldn't afford, like Ensure and other protein drinks. Donations sustained hundreds of people in Tucson throughout the pandemic, and volunteers stepped in to make sure everything could be distributed to those who needed it. We were able to provide a variety of cleaning supplies as well that were usually hard for clients to afford. I remember we received a couple of calls. These clients were just overjoyed with, "Oh my God, I got some of these Swift, the dusters and the mops," and they were just so happy. It was so gratifying to hear how happy they were. It's been such a blessing to help a wider net of Tucson population during the pandemic, and the need has been great. That's all I have. Thank you very much, and handing the baton to Heidi.
Thank you, Alicia, and thank you, Meredith. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. There are a couple of ways that you can get involved and help out from wherever you are. So the first is to donate. Like Alicia was saying, the Meals on Wheels are delivered at no cost to the clients, and shopping is done. All they have to do is pay for the food that they're receiving, but the shopping is done at no cost to the recipients. So any donations that we receive can make a huge difference and allow us to expand our services to even more people in need in the Southern Arizona area. And then advocating is another really great way that you can help us out. Different advocacy initiatives are coming up all the time, and you can sign up to be on our advocacy alerts email newsletter. And that link, I'll put it in the chat in just a minute. It's lss-sw.org/advocacy. So you can find out what we're doing. We share a lot of other advocacy alerts that come out from Pima Council on Aging or Lutheran Advocacy Ministry of Arizona. So we have a lot of wonderful partners in our advocacy work. And of course, you can volunteer. So volunteering can be done with us at Lutheran Social Services. Like Alicia said, right now, we are not having volunteers go into clients' homes with COVID, but you can still send some love into client homes by way of a greeting card. So we have some volunteers have been making beautiful and personalized greeting cards with just a message of hope and encouragement for folks who have been more isolated during this time. And there's no need to put a stamp on those anymore. We just put them in with the groceries or the meal delivery. So those will be delivered to people in need around Southern Arizona that are isolated. And there are also a lot of volunteer opportunities with the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona. So we can put some more information about that, maybe in the chat, a link to their website, so you can find out some other ways to get involved if you're down here in Tucson or other counties in Southern Arizona. So to see if you or a loved one could be eligible for those services, we had that slide earlier with those eligibility requirements. You can also just give our office a call. The number's right there on the screen. It's 520-748-2300, extension 2303. So you'll be able to speak with somebody in our office about the services that we provide and ask any questions about eligibility and see if you can receive those services, or a friend. And then these pictures are just some of the thank you cards that we've received from clients. So I just thought they were sweet and wanted to share that with you all as well. So if there are any questions, see we have one in here, a question for Meredith. Does the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona have plans to produce a Hunger Action Month calendar for September this year?
That is a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I assume so, particularly because things are starting to open up. But I know that we have a pretty active social media. So folks are on Facebook or Instagram. I think we may even have a Pinterest. And so there'll definitely be updates there about things like the Hunger Action Month calendar. And for those who aren't familiar, that usually consists of some like actions you can take, some information about hunger in Arizona right now, and is a way to just like learn more and be more engaged in that work.
Thank you, Meredith. All right, we have, and then a comment in the chat to say thank you for sharing about food swamps. Somebody was unfamiliar with that term, and I have to admit I was also unfamiliar with that term. I knew about food deserts where there aren't access to groceries in the area, but a food swamp was a new one. We have a question from Melanie. She says, I understand that in some areas volunteers deliver the Meals on Wheels. Could the program be expanded if volunteers were utilized? That is a great question. Who would like to take that one? Alicia, Connie?
I know we have worked with volunteers to accompany the drivers, that's been something that we've actively looked for, is volunteers to accompany drivers, and that the routes are all set by Pima Council on Aging. I think it is the choice of the area agency about whether they use a staff model or a volunteer model for Meals on Wheels. And again, that's something I don't, I'm not an expert on aging services in the area agencies, but in most of the organizations, because this program, Meals on Wheels, we're subcontracted through Pima Council on Aging. And I think it's the area agency that decides which model to use. But always having a volunteer can extend and help, either by being able to put more people on the route so that we can, because it can go faster, or whether or not we can also do some additional, I'm not sure about that. I'd have to find out more through the area agency.
Thank you, Connie. All right, we got another question in the chat. I believe you also support other entities like Interfaith Community Services with mobile meals, etc. Can you speak more to this? So I know, Meredith, would you like to take that one? I'm not sure who else you guys support with the Community Food Bank for mobile meals.
Yeah, absolutely. So Interfaith Community Services is a really large partner of ours. I believe that of all of the partners we give food to, we give the second highest amount to Interfaith Community Services. So they're a really wonderful partner. And I know that they have multiple types of programming. The mobile meals, I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but they do have like a mobile truck, I believe, that does food deliveries. And a lot of that food does come from us. So they do a lot of wonderful services. And I also really appreciate how they, similar to your organization really connect food to other services. I think they also have utility assistance and rental assistance. So they're also a wonderful organization.
Definitely. Thank you, Meredith. All right. Any other questions? I'll go ahead and put it back to our slide with the eligibility requirements, just in case you want to see that for maybe people in your church or your community. We do shopping in Tucson and the surrounding areas. So that's including Sahuarita, Green Valley, 3 Points, Vail, Oro Valley, and Marana. So it's not just in the Tucson area. And then our Meals on Wheels delivery is east of Euclid, including Vail, and Catholic Community Services does the other side of the county. So that's how we split that up. And we are very grateful to FEMA Council on Aging for their partnership in that work. So any last questions, you can put them in the Q&A or the chat, and we will send this recording out to everybody who registered as well, so you can get all this information again. All right, I'm not seeing anything else. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate it and hope that the rest of your Thursday is wonderful and that you get some good food today. I know being in this presentation made me feel hungry, so. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.